Hello everyone, and a great big happy new year to you all, and welcome to this very special event that's been organised by the British Union of Spiritist Societies. Now today our good friend Charles Kempf will be talking about Léon Denis, who was born 175 years ago today. And this event is being streamed both on YouTube and Facebook channels, and also by the Irish Spiritist Federation, by Kardec Radio and Kardec Group, as well as by Bus. So please give us a thumbs up, give a like for this event, and make sure you follow and subscribe to these channels as well. And great, we're seeing some likes coming in. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So stick around with us until the end, as we will have a Q&A, and there will be a few announcements as well on behalf of Bus. And so if you have any questions for Charles, or even if you just want to say hello, please type away into the chat or comment area of wherever you are watching, and let us know where you're watching from today. And we've got a few people already saying hello to us, so hello to everyone out there. And so we're going to get started straight away. So let's bring on Charles. Hello, Charles.
Hello, Adam. Good
And Happy New
afternoon.
Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thanks a lot. All the best for you, for your family, for all the workers of the British Union of Spiritist Society and also the Irish Federation.
Thank you. And so before we get started with your talk, I wanted to get your thoughts and your comments, your reflections about 2020 and what you hope to see happen in 2021.
Yes, really, 2020 was, let's say, an abnormal year, very unusual one. I think it's the first time, at least in my life and even in a long period, since more or less 100 years, that there wasn't such a pandemic. So we are rediscovering these things which can happen in nature. And I must here say that I'm really deeply grateful to having been to knowing Kardec's books, the Spiritist teachings, who helped me really a lot to take all these difficulties. So restringement in the liberty, restringement in social contacts, and so on, and still having all these wonderful resources to take the thing positively and to make out of this difficult event something positive, to know ourselves better, and also continue working, disseminating the teachings as we are doing right now, even better than before, without having to take planes and so on. So that was 2020. 2021 apparently will start more or less in the same way. The vaccine is here, a lot of hope, whatever. Hopefully it will fix, but let's stay cautious. It may take still a couple of months until it will be really safe, and we will until we get some liberty as we had before. And if there is not something else which will come and surprising us again. The only thing is, I would say, leaving here a positive message. We did it. We are here. We passed 2020 and overcame all these difficulties. So we are trained now for, even if there is a little bit more or a new trial coming, to face it positively with good mood and to look all the good things out of it.
Yeah,
This is what I
absolutely.
wish to all the people who are listening to this video, and hopefully wishing, of course, all the best to anyone, and also having thoughts for all these people who left loved ones last year and who may still leave loved ones in the coming future. It happened also to me. My mother died, and neighbor and very good friends. So, but here again, Spiritist teaching are bringing a lot of resources, knowing that the life doesn't stop with what we call dying, and that the soul is surviving to it, and how to say, the love is continuing after this after the death. So that's one of the big things that Spiritist teaching are bringing us, helping us so much to overcome all these difficulties.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The beauty of these teachings that Kardec left for us to study and learn from helps us to look at all these challenges and trials, all these things that happen, and think, okay, how can I move on? How can I make things a little bit better for myself? And
Exactly.
absolutely, unfortunately, we know many people who have lost friends and family due to what's gone on. But obviously, we're here, 2021. It's little bit of a fresh start, even though nothing magic has happened from one day to the next. We can feel that new energy coming through. So let's just progress. Well, like everyone knows, that we're here today to hear about Léon Denis, and as a reminder, we'll have this short Q&A at the end and a few announcements. So, Charles, we know that you're going to talk for about an hour or so. So please tell us about Léon Denis. Who was he, and what's his importance within Spiritism?
Okay, thank you, Adam. So I was commenting just before these wonderful teachings of Allan Kardec, but now we will see that of course Allan Kardec was the basis, the beginner, the startup, but he had some huge, very good followers, and Léon Denis was one. And I hope through these lectures today, I will give you a little bit of taste of the beauty of what he wrote, showing you also not only the beauty, but also the strengths. He is really one of the most famous follower of Allan Kardec and wrote some wonderful books, leaving us some wonderful teachings, as I will show you today. Huh? So why today talking about Léon Denis? Because he was born 1st of January 1846. So today it is exactly his 175th birthday, 175 years. He was born in a small city called Fougue. I will show you later on where it is. And you have here a picture of him when he was about 40 to 50 years old. This is one of the most famous pictures, the most known of him, that I'm showing you now. So it's a little bit difficult, how to say, to I don't want to rewrite or whatever, change anything of what Léon Denis has written or said, because really he did it in a wonderful way, in a very, how to say, romantic form. He used the language a little bit more modern, 50 years after Allan Kardec. And the best way to give you the taste out of it is to show you some of his writings. So let's listen a little bit to him. Today we have a lot of problems. It's the COVID, but it's not only the COVID. We have seen the reaction of the people, selfishness, and so on. And look here what Léon Denis wrote in his book After the Dead, which was first issue 1890, and whose last issue, revision, was a couple of years before his death in the 1920s. So he wrote us, selfishness is the brother of pride and proceeds from the same causes. It is one of the most terrible diseases of the soul, the greatest obstacle to social improvements. Alone, it neutralizes, it makes sterile almost all the efforts of man toward good. Also, fighting it must be the constant concern of all the friends in progress, of all the servants of justice. You can see this has been written 100 years ago or revised 100 years ago, but look at the situation today. We are still at the same point, isn't it? And really, I mean, selfishness is one of the worst things when you look to the wars, when you look to some of the reactions, negative reactions to the COVID, for instance, were caused exactly by selfishness. The fear of death, the fear of missing something, made that the people run into the supermarket at the beginning of confinement and took their, how to say, chariot full of things, making stocks of a totally unnecessary way. And then you have some older people who could not come so quickly. At the end, they came and they didn't have anything anymore. So, and they had, of course, to wait that there was a new supplying of these goods to have some, and may have missed it during a short period. So in this, we can immediately see how a trial like COVID is reveal what are we still selfish or not? No? This is a big problem. Know thyself. But when we have a big trial like COVID, it reveals us what was our reaction. Did we also run to the supermarket to take more for us and leaving others without? Or did we just take the necessary and have, how to say, this attitude to leave also for all the other people who need? So this is helping us to question ourselves. And if we find that in ourselves we still have a little bit of selfishness, let's follow his advice and fight against it. Transform it into more charity. So he's continuing, our ills arise from the fact that despite the progress of science and the development of education, man still does not know himself. He knows little about the laws of the universe. He knows nothing of the forces that are in him. The know thyself of the Greek philosopher has remained for the vast majority of humans a sterile call. So it's exactly confirming what I just told. Do we know, do all the humans know that we are not just a bunch of cells governed by some bioelectrical reactions in our body? Do all of us know that we have a soul? Do all of us know the potential and the strength of this soul? By far not. And this is exactly what we have to develop this spiritualist paradigm of the science and walk out of this restricting materialist paradigm, which is dogmatic, as Rupert Sheldrake explained very clearly in the last International Spiritist Medical Congress that was in the month of November, and whose videos are still available on YouTube. And clearly, we will only progress once we will start studying seriously, scientifically, something else than just matter, as it is still too much the case today. Continuing, what are the remedies for all these problems? The first is also given by Léon Denis. For a long time, it was believed that we had done enough in spreading instruction. But instruction without moral education is powerless and sterile. Above all, we must make the child a man who understands his duties and who understands his rights, as he understands his rights. So we all have rights, but we also have duties. We are free, but we also are responsible for the choices that we have done freely. You see, these are really fundamental thoughts that written by Allan Kardec and wonderfully recalled by Léon Denis. And he is here showing that the instructions that we get in school is not enough. We need to have education. Education is more than just instruction. It includes instruction, but it is also including this moral education to make the people good people, which are aware about their freedom, but also about their responsibilities, about their duties and rights, but also about their duties. And you can see the image on the left side, the teacher asking to the young boy, please write the word ethic on the board. And the young boy is answering, sorry, the gypsum has been stolen. So it illustrates perfectly this message. Continuing with listening, Léon Denis, the preceptors of humanity therefore have an immediate duty to fulfill. It is to put spiritualism back at the base of education, to work to remake the inner man and moral health. We must awaken the human soul, asleep by a fatal rhetoric, show it, show it its hidden powers, force it to become aware of itself to realize its glorious destinies. Okay, so it's also, you see, confirming what I just told, inspired, of course, by all these readings. We need to find the right balance between material world and spiritual world, knowing perfectly that all what is material, the day that we will die, and this has 100% probability that it will happen one day, sooner or later, better later than sooner, okay, fine, but one day we will have to go. And then we have to think, what do we take with us? Do we take all our belongings, our money, the car, the house? Not even the body we take on the other side. All this stays here on earth. What comes with our soul are only what we have learned in this life, and also our consciousness. If we have a good conscience or a bad conscience, this is what we will take to the other side. And it's very important to know, and you can trust me, once you know what happens at that moment, studying it from a spiritualist point of view, it is a big motivation for our moral reform to become better people here on earth during our life. Let's continue listening Léon Denis. If we devoted to education of the masses and popularization of sovereign principles, only a quarter of the sums spent on works of destruction and death, the face of the world would be quickly changed. Progress would be faster in the operation of social helps. Through the development of moral sense and evolution of intelligences, many causes of suffering would disappear and humanity would walk one more assured steps towards better times. So this is, you see, he wrote this also 100 years ago, and you still today we are in the same situation. Maybe we should change. It's not a quarter. I would say it's 10% or even less than 10%. We have more than 100 or maybe 200 million people on the world which have not enough food or not enough water, who are really missing basic things to survive. And this is not admissible. So we should really stand up and claim that these things must stop. Of course, it's not so simple. It's not just a question of money. A lot of times, the countries where these people are hungry are also the countries where there is the highest level of perceived corruption. So it's a global action that we have to take to make all these things stop. And also, basically it's not a question of money, and we know it perfectly. So again, Léon Denis, and this book, small booklet he has written, is Socialism and Spiritism, is also very interesting, where he is talking a lot about the mistake of the Marxism. Why didn't it work? And you see, it was even before it went stronger in Russia and in China and other countries. He found already the basic problems and explained them very clearly. Continuing listening Léon Denis, without the moral discipline that everyone must impose on themselves, public freedoms are only an illusion. We have the appearance, we do not have the customs of a free people. Society remains exposed through the violence of its patients and the intensity of his appetites to all complications, to all disorders. And when I was looking to some images to put on this slide in English language, I was really surprised to see how many books have been written about this subject in the last years. That without discipline, there is no freedom. Without, we see it even in the COVID. Of course, a lot of people don't like to put masks. I don't like either, but I put it. Why? Because I don't want to restringe the freedom of my neighbors. I don't want to take the risk to contaminate them and to make such that they can stay in the hospital or even die. This is a lack of we must respect the freedom of other people. And this is why our freedom stops where it jeopardizes the freedom of our neighbor. And this is why we need to have this discipline. You see, very simple. We want it for us, so we have to do it also for others. Because if we don't respect it for others, how can we claim that the other will respect our freedom? So, you see, very simple principles, very basic thoughts, which helps us a lot in understanding and overcoming and accepting all what's happening nowadays. One more of Léon Denis. The social state being as a whole only the result of individual values, it is therefore above all important to focus on this fight against our faults, our passions, our selfish interests. As long as we do not, as we have not stopped the hatred, envy, we will not be able to establish peace, fraternity, justice among humankind, and the solution of social problems will remain uncertain and precarious. So you see, if we want to change the world, we have first to change ourselves. It's as simple as this. And if every one of us change himself, then the thing will become much better, much quicker. And even, I would say, what is today still necessary to have laws forbidding and obliging things may not even be necessary anymore because it will be natural in each of us. And here again, I found a lot of books written about this recently. Self-reform automatically brings about social reform. If you search a little bit in internet, you will find a lot of books who have been written today, recalling that Léon Denis wrote this already a century ago. Wake up from your heavy sleep. Tear the material veil which envelops you. Learn to know yourself, to know the powers that are within you, and to use them. All the voices of nature, all the voices of space and are crying unto you. Get up and walk, hasten to conquer your destinies. Here, you see how positive Léon Denis was, how this nice language he's using. Of course, here it's losing a little bit in the translation, but of course we can then make a workforce with Adam to improve the translations of these wonderful teachings that Léon Denis left us, because he's really, his books sometimes when you read them, particularly at the end of the chapters, you feel how inspired he was by the good spirits, and sometimes you get some tears about admiration, so nice it is. So continuing, love will save the world. Its heat will melt the ice of doubt, of selfishness, of hatred. It will soften the hardest, the most refractory hearts. So I give you a couple of minutes to look a little bit to this small picture on the right side, which illustrates this very, very nicely. And I hope it's big enough that you can all see, and showing that love at the end will win. There is no other way around. And it works, and it works. Okay, let's continue. So let's talk a little bit about, now you have seen a little bit what he wrote. Let's talk a little bit about who was Léon Denis. So again, born 1st of January 1846 in Fougue. It's a small city close to Toul, which is a city which is close to the city of Nancy in France. And you can see here, Fougue is here on the left side of this map, and Nancy is on the right side. It's about 20 kilometers between both. And you can see here on this map of France, you see it's in the Lorraine, northeast region of France, where it is located. By the way, not so far from my home. It's about 2 hours driving. So this enabled me. So he was son of Joseph Denis and Anne-Lucie Liouville. So we found quite some information about his father and his mother. It's not so far from home, so I could easily go there a sunny day to take some pictures. You see here on the left side the church of this small city, And just around the corner on the right side, you see this house in the middle of the picture is the house where he was born. With 9 years old, he was living in Strasbourg, so he moved a lot with his father. Was not so stable in terms of his work. He changed a lot of times, and then they had to move with the whole family around France, as you will see. So they went first to Strasbourg, so which also something like 1 hour and a half from Nancy distance. His father was working in this house that you can see here on this picture, where they were manufacturing the coins of the money. Then, shortly after, he moved to Bordeaux, where Léon Denis even had to abandon his studies to help his father. You see, with 10 years, he had to stop his studies. In 1857, his father was station master in Morsinx in the Landes. You know, that was the big period of development of railways. And of course, they were looking for a lot of staff. And his father found an employment in this station, Morsinx. So the Landes is southwest, close between Bordeaux and Biarritz, more or less. And there, Léon Denis could go back to school to continue a little bit his studies, primary studies. Later on, they moved once more, a little bit more west, closer to the Mediterranean coast, city of Mou, where in the biography we can see that Léon Denis, he was a little bit older already, 12, 13 years. He was compensating for his father's deficiencies. His father was not so serious period, and he took care of telegrams, accounting, and once there was an inspection coming to the station from the railway authority, and they say, where is your father? And the young Léon Denis was telling, he's there, you see, they are unloading a freight wagon, and he's there helping to unload. Okay, it's good, fine. And in reality, it was the young boy which was doing what was necessary to avoid the collisions of trains. So you can see the type of situation he had to pass even in his young age. 1862, they moved to Tours, city of Tours, which is in the center west of France. I think that was also when his mother said to his father, "No, it's enough. I don't want to move anymore." And basically, they stayed in Tours. And there, Léon Denis also had to work in a ceramic factory, so very hard, noisy, dusty, and also cutting the hands and the fingers, very difficult ambient. And you see, 46, 62, he was only 16 years old. And basically, he did not have secondary studies. So he's basically what we call in French autodidact. So he was all what he learned it by himself. And at 18 years age, so 1864, basically, by chance, I put chance in between brackets because we know that chance does not exist, that he was somehow guided to go there. He found the Spirit's book of Allan Kardec in a bookshop in the street you can see on the screen, the main street of city of Tours, and he bought his book. So he was a little bit concerned because his mother was really watching carefully what he's doing, what he's reading, taking a lot of care of his education and so on. And he found later on that he has hidden the book. His mother found the book, and she was also reading the book hiddenly from him, you see. So the things basically went well. And Léon Denis commented this episode, writing himself, "It seems, in fact, that the invisible wants to test us, measure our degree of perseverance, demand a certain maturity of spirit before revealing its secrets to us." Continuing, Léon Denis met personally Allan Kardec and his wife Amélie Boudet during their travel to Tours in 1867. So you see, he was 21 years old. Allan Kardec and Amélie came to Tours to make a lecture. They rented a big room in the city. At the last moment, it was forbidden by the police. So they went somehow in the close to Tours in a kind of a house with a big garden, and even so had the lecture. And that is when Léon Denis met personally Allan Kardec. And I think he met him also once he went to Paris in the interval before Kardec was dying. And shortly after, Léon Denis was really convinced and started to work in a new founded Spiritist group, which was Rue du Cygne. It was working in the room, in a meeting room of a hotel, Hôtel du Cygne, which is still existing today, and you see, as you can see on this picture. So that was the first step of Spiritist experiments of Léon Denis, and himself is writing, I learned there how dangerous it is to go into Spiritist experimentation without preparation, without effective protection, and these examples made me cautious. You see how he has been, how to say, his experience has been built along the time. 26th of October 1868, Léon Denis was initiated as a Freemason in the Loge des Démophiles in Tours. And thanks to a Brazilian researcher that I will show later on, we found the register and the evidence of this. And here on the right side, you can see this famous picture of Léon Denis when he was young, something like 25 or 30 years, during this period where he was Freemason. And this period was extremely interesting for him because he learned a lot of things with the Freemasons, amongst others, to make lectures. So all the art of making lectures he learned with the Masons, and we can see how much this helped him later on during his life. 2 years after, 1870, you know, it was a war where against Napoleon's against the Prussian. So he was called as a reservist in La Rochelle, and himself is commenting, in the time space of 6 months, I successively became an officer, a major, a second lieutenant, and if I would still have moved up the ranks had peace not come. And he is interpreting this by saying, in one of his past life, he had a military career, and that is why he learned so quickly all this. He did not make the normal military duty because he had a very bad vision. Nevertheless, he was reservist during this war. And then 1883, we can see also the evidence that Léon Denis left the Loge des Démophiles, the Freemasons. And the reason for this is because a little bit before 1883, the Freemasons of the Big Orient current, they removed the notion of God from the basic beliefs in the name of free beliefs, you know. And Léon Denis, of course, did not agree with this, and that was apparently one of the motivations why he took some distance, albeit he maintained contacts with the Freemason during all his life. And Léon Denis clearly was convinced about the necessity of the existence of God by these evidences which are clearly shown in the Spirit's book of Allan Kardec. And he writes, God is unknowable in his essence. He is in his intimate depths, but he reveals himself through all his works in the great book open in front of your eyes and deep inside us. So it's just to look the nature around us, to look inside us, and this is where we find one of the evidences of the existence of God. So we have here, you see the register of when Léon Denis left officially the Freemasonry. Then he started, he was of course working. It was not a ceramic factory anymore because he was working, making accounting, and he was also he was a commercial guy. So this is allowed him to travel a lot for his work. Amongst others, he was in Tunisia, in Sardine Island, and so on. And inspired during his travel, he wrote his first books, as you can see here, Tunis and the island of Sardine, The Doctor of Catan, and also Giovanna. It's romance book, so it's not yet Spiritist books, but these are the first book he wrote. And the first Spiritist book he wrote was in 1885. It's a small booklet that we reprinted recently and which is absolutely excellent. So it's really something, a small booklet. We do it very cheap, really to give it for free wherever we go, because it's condensed and very, very strong and positive, helping a lot of people. And in the introduction of this book, he is writing, "It is to you, O my brothers and sisters in humanity, to all of you who have been bowed down by the burden of life, to you whom bitter struggles, worries, trials that overwhelmed, that I dedicate these pages." 1885, he started also to participate more actively in the Spiritist movement, and he was vice president of the Union Spirit Française, French Spiritist Union, which was created shortly before this. And even in 1889, he participated to the Second World International Spiritist Congress, which took place in Paris. It was 100 years after the French Revolution. And you can see here a comment that we could find into the newspapers, really positive comments about his participation to this Congress. Continuing, 1889, he started to give lectures in France, Belgium, Algeria, and basically his lectures were somehow walking parallel with the books he wrote. All the elements he was studying, gathering to write a book, he was also disseminating by doing lectures. And it is in 1890 that he wrote his first main book, which is called Après la mort, After Death. You can see here the cover of one of the first editions of this book, which was already as the fourth edition the year after, 1891. So it was an immediate success. And 1890 also, he created another Spiritist group, Rue du Rempart, that he was mostly leading himself, but it was a group with, very serious experimentation. And there was spiritual assistance of some spirits. One is calling himself Jérôme de Prague, and the other one is called the Blue Spirits. And why Blue Spirits? Because the seeing mediums which were there, could see the spirits in a blue color. And it was a spirit which was maybe not Joan of Arc, but close to Joan of Arc. So that is where really he made a lot of experiments, as you can see in the description he is doing in his book, particularly about mediumship. He had really some big phenomenon like materialization, transports, incorporation, really a lot of things who gave him all this the material he used to write his books. Continuing, 1898, he wrote the second big book, which was Christianism and Spiritism. And he's writing therein, there is in Christianity elements of progress, seeds of social life and morality, which, while developing, can produce great things. The doctrine of Christ contains many teachings that have remained misunderstood, which, under more enlightened influences, can produce fruits of wisdom and love, powerful results of the general good. Let us be Christians, but raising ourselves above various denominations, to the pure source from which the gospel came. Let us love Christ, but let us place him above intolerant sects, above churches which exclude each other and cast anathema on one another. Christ cannot be a Jesuit, a Jansenist, a Huguenot. His arms are wide open to all humanity. This gives you also a flavor about the content of this book. So really underlining the wonderful teaching that we can find when we go back to the source of the teachings, and seeing also all the mistakes, all this intolerance, all these things that came from in the traditional religion, and that are doing so that a lot of people today are taking some distance from religion, are even materialist, rejecting also the teaching and spiritualism, and the existence of the soul. And Léon Denis is here clearly showing, no, the teachings are strong. The mistakes are only what the humankind has introduced later on in it. And he's also here writing, the arms of Christ are wide open to all humanity. So he's also not saying that Christianism has to be dominating in the world. No, all the spiritual beliefs, from all the religions, whether it's Hinduist or Buddhist or Islamist, when you go to the root of all of those, and he's showing it somehow in his the first section of his book after that I talked about just before. When you go to the roots, you will see that 90% of the moral teachings are the same across all the religions in the world. So he's really making a strong call. Let's go to these teachings and let's forget all these mistakes that have been introduced by human, opening also our arms wide to whole humanity. Continuing, here you have two pictures of him. This is a picture also very well known when he was 40 to 50 years old, when he was writing all these books I just talked about. And on the right side, you can see a picture of him with his mother sitting in front of him. Continuing, quickly, the other books, 1903, Into the Unseen, dans l'invisible. This book is developing his mediumship experience, as I told it before. Another book which is also absolutely excellent is Le problème de l'être et de la destinée, The Problem of Life and Destiny. It's a little bit thicker book, but with wonderful teaching. We really can understand from this book where we are, where do we come from, where we are, and where we are going to. Why the pain? Why are we suffering? What is how the fact to be older is useful in the life, and so on and so on. Showing also about reincarnation and all these laws, really developing all the teachings of the Spiritism as codified by Allan Kardec, but in this modern and poetic language. 1910, he wrote Big Enigma. So Big Enigma is focused more on God, the existence of God, and all the evidences of his existence. Then 1912, he wrote the book of The Mystery of Joan of Arc, Joan of Arc medium, showing that when Joan of Arc was hearing the spirits, the voices, as she was telling, who guided her to have these incredible successes in the war against the English at that time. Jeanne d'Arc was simply a hearing medium. That's it. And so you see, all the people believe and admire Jeanne d'Arc, and the fact to present her as a medium is something very, very strong also for promoting the spiritualist paradigm and also mediumship, which is a consequence of it. Then 1990, you see, it was after the First World War. He wrote a book, The Invisible World and the War. And in this book, he continued because he was too old to participate to the war itself. He continued the activities in the Spiritist group and received a lot of communication of the spirits. And some of them are absolutely interesting because the spirits were announcing things that happened then later on. And he's then gathered all this information into this small booklet. He also wrote, it's not a book, but it's a series of articles, 1924, about socialism and spiritism. I put you some quotes out of it in the earlier slide. And that was also, with the Marxism developing, and he was clearly showing what's wrong in the Marxism. In 1925, he was the president. He was leading, responsible for the International Spiritist Council, which happened in Paris that year. And he was guiding and president of all the sessions and so on. And we have a lot of information about him on this period. I will show you on the next slide a picture also out of it. And his last book, which he wrote just before dying, is The Celtic Genius, showing how the Celts, this Celtic culture, was incredibly advanced at that time, already with clear teaching about reincarnation, about the moral laws, and so on. And he's also about mediumship, the Druids, and so on. And he is really putting a lot of teaching that he got also from the spirits and the studies he made into this book. And it's the 12th of April 1927 that he returned to the spiritual home, as you can see, with 81 years old. Continuing, here you can see a picture that we found recently in the French National Library of very high quality, where you can see 1925, so he was already 79 years old and had the duty to lead this Congress in Paris. Initially, it was foreseen not to be him. He asked himself, it must be Camille Flammarion. And the spirits, they came and they told, no, it will not be Camille Flammarion, it has to be you. And then at the end, he accepted. And the reason was because Camille Flammarion died a couple of months before this Congress. You see how the things are and how assisted this man was by the spirituality. Okay, so now there is a man, a Brazilian guy, for which I have a big admiration. You can see him on the picture, Eduardo Carvalho Monteiro. He was an outstanding researcher about not only Léon Denis, about Allan Kardec. He was also a Freemason himself. And you can see here a picture of him aside the tomb of Léon Denis in the city of Tours. And on the right side, you can see a picture when I accompanied him in the Jardin des Prébendes Douai, which is a garden in Tours, which was just in front of the flat where Léon Denis lived a long time. And when I was with him in Tours, this picture had been taken in 2004. I was really amazed to see how quick we could find so many information and so many original documents about Léon Denis only in a couple of days, just by going to the public archives of that region. Unfortunately, he died. Eduardo died the year after, suddenly, and I'm missing him a lot, at least incarnated, because I know that his soul is sometimes pushing my mouse when I'm looking and making some researches somewhere. Sometimes I'm finding things where, when I calculate the probability to find it, is absolutely minimal. So there was a spiritual help helping to find those things. So I'm sure he's still here. And that is since that time that I really intensified also myself some researches. We did not do so many researches on Léon Denis yet, but it's in my plan to go to Tours, hopefully this year, if the restriction of movement and all this will free a little bit. Also in the archive, it's not so easy to go. Some of the document and information are not available because of the COVID. But hopefully this will improve later on this year. So I will be able to go there and to find a lot of more things about Léon Denis. And Eduardo wrote books. So you see this, when I showed you the Freemason episode, it's coming out from these books that he wrote. Because as he was Freemason, of course, he had open access to all the archives of the Freemasons. And he wrote these two books with a lot of, basically, as soon as he gathered some information, he published it immediately in a book. At that time, there was no internet, to make it available to everyone and to encourage the collaborative researches which are going much quicker than only individual researchers. So he was really generous and sharing all his findings very early. We started last year in the French Spiritist movement, Mouvement Spirit Francophone, not French, sorry, French speaking, Spiritist movement. We published in the last years, republished all the books of Allan Kardec, very cheap, something like €7.50, the main books in A5 format, nice and so on, of Allan Kardec. And last year, we started also reprinting the books of Léon Denis. You can see here the 3 first ones that we have published. After that, the problem of being, and also the reason of life. So these are already available. If you want to buy them in French, you can go to this website, Asso Kardec, and buy them. And also we do them very cheap, less than €10 per book. Why? Because we really want to promote, particularly this year, the teachings of Léon Denis. Continuing, Brazilian Federation also is publishing a lot of books of Léon Denis. You can see here more than 1 million copies, and this was already some years ago. So I didn't check recently. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago it was already over 1 million, and of course it has probably continued selling very well. Here I think it's a mistake in the Brazilian Federation book or website. They have translated after that in Brazilian already in 1877, when the book was only issued in 1897, but 87 or 1890, sorry. But nevertheless, you see, only this one has 110,000 exemplars. And in 1991, it was the 17th edition. And you can see all the others, all the books you can easily find in Portuguese in the Brazilian Federation, but you can also find them in the Léon Denis Spiritist Center in Rio de Janeiro. There is also a publishing company, and they have also compiled a lot of other books themselves. All these complementary books and biographies of Léon Denis, all this you can easily find in Portuguese language. But I found also, as you can see here, in 1928, the books of Léon Denis were already translation into Vietnamese language. You know that Vietnam was called Indochine at that time. It was a French colony. And the Léon Denis teaching are available in this language since this time. You can find them and download them for free on the website of the French National Library. Continuing, you can see here on the left side the Mystery of Joan of Arc, which is the book I told you Léon Denis wrote. And look by whom it has been translated, by Arthur Conan Doyle himself. So Arthur Conan Doyle, you know, he had a Spiritist period. He was a very, very good friend of Léon Denis. They met a lot of times. They participated together to all these congresses in the 1923, 1925, as I told you. Conan Doyle came a lot of times from London to Paris, and every time met with Léon Denis. And he translated himself this book, The Mystery of Joan of Arc. So it's really something remarkable to be known, because Joan of Arc is maybe not the, how can I say it, the happiest person for British people, because she was at the base of winning that war at that time. Nevertheless, you can see here this huge recognition from this extremely known British author who is so famous for all his books he wrote about Sherlock Holmes. It exists also, you can see, in German, Nach dem Tode. So it was translated also 1901. You can see also that this book was really admired, at a lot of success a little bit everywhere. And on the right side, you can see it in Swedish, Efter döden. And it was translated by a person who lost his wife, who was about to commit suicide, and who, by chance, again, read this book of Léon Denis in French, and it saved his life. And he was so grateful for this and so admiring it that he translated it himself into Swedish. And this book is currently being republished. I could see it in Sweden and also in Finland. And you have also translations into English. On top of Joan of Arc, translated by Conan Doyle, you can see here on the website of the American Spiritist Federation of United States. They have translated several of them. So After Death, Into the Unseen, The Big Enigma, The Problem of Life and Destiny. And also they translated another small booklet, which is called Spiritist in the Arts, which is also a series of articles that Léon Denis wrote in the Spiritist magazine. We in France, with the French Spiritist movement and the French Federation, we are also making a big work now to gather all the writings and articles and lectures and all the information we found about Léon Denis over the whole period, but which is spread in tens of different magazines and newspapers and summary of Congress and so on. We put all this into a new volume that we will also publish and issue this year in order to make all this less known teaching of Léon Denis better known. Continuing, Léon Denis supporting the Spiritist movement. He died in 1927, and really I must admit that the Spiritist movement in French lost a lot of momentum at that time, because, in 3 years, 25 died Camille Flammarion, 1926 died Gabriel Delanne, and 1927 died Léon Denis. So 3 huge, big followers of Kardec who died in only 3 years in the 1920s. So there were still some other guys like Jean Meyer, Léon Chevreuil, and so on. But the Spiritist movement in France lost a lot of power due to the departure of these 3 big followers. And that was a little bit, let's say, not so long before the Second World War, which came later on. Of today, the people and even the French people are rediscovering Léon Denis. And what I want to show here is Léon Denis is also still very active as a spirit in supporting the Spiritist movement. So the first message that we got from him was in London. So it was a message transmitted 22nd of February 1998. We were meeting there for the 10th anniversary of the Allan Kardec study group, and the medium was Roger Perez. And here I just put you some excerpts of this message from Léon Denis, showing how strong and active his support is for the Spiritist movement, particularly in Europe. I'm here this evening to show you my deep affection for the love employed in the accomplishment of this noble task, in spite of the sufferings and ingratitude on this earth. I am one of those who come to all homes like yours. We pay attention to it and make sure that your steps and your efforts are protected, stimulated, and make sure that your intuitions allow you to build always better, with all the necessary lights so that you do not be discouraged. You are the lens which will protect your humanity in the centuries to come towards divine lights. Be convinced of our presence. Your difficulties will be eliminated. You will be surprised. Your sensitivity is equal to my sensitivity. If I'm here, it's because I asked for it and I was authorized to tell you all this. I will never forget you, Léon Denis. And here you see on the next slide the picture of that gathering, which was in February 1998, so already 22 years ago, where you can see on the picture on the right side our dear Janet Duncan, that is maybe listening us now, or for sure is still very active in participating to the gatherings. And on the left side, Léon Denis, Roger Perez, which got the message of Léon Denis by psychography. And he also went back to the spiritual world 2 years ago. That was not the only one. You see here, 31st of October 2002, there was a 9th International Spiritist Council General Gathering in Porto, Portugal. It was the 10th anniversary of the council. And this time, the message of Léon Denis came through Divaldo Franco. And he wrote, "It is inevitable that the difficulties remain challenging, especially because the Spiritist doctrine does not fall within the limits of school of conventional philosophical thoughts, nor is it subject to the laboratory beakers with the investigation of science in the constant movement of improvement, nor of a watertight religion, but of a religion whose objectives are not defined in the ultramontane dogmas, nor stratified in the theologies that do not resist the advance of the creature's own intellect moral development." You can see it's a little bit confirming the same thoughts, the same line of thinking as we have seen earlier in his book, Christianism and Spiritism. It will not, of course, be the religion of the future for all of humanity. We do not have that dream and less that presumption. And somewhere else, Léon Denis wrote, "Spiritist is not the religion of the future, it is the future of the religions." It is essentially a doctrine of education in its deepest sense, which expands beyond conventional instruction from traditional school grades. Moral education, yes, that has to do with the transformation of the individual, and that stands as an opponent of materialism and cruelty in the textual words of the codifier himself. So you see, again, we can easily recognize Léon Denis in this message he gave. And he is also continuing, "When today we observe the adhesion of different countries around the banner of the out of charity there is no salvation, we have no way to fear from the enemies. Therefore, it is up to us in general and to everyone in their lives to make ours the Spiritist words, ours the Spiritist conduct, and that our life reflects the excellence of the Spiritist postulates, so that all those who know us can assert that the doctrine we espouse is noble, dignified, liberating, because they identify us as a living letters that we are of this extraordinary religion. Yesterday are the basis, today the beginning of the construction, tomorrow the temple of universal brotherhood, housing all creatures under one roof, love in a general space, brotherhood beyond the limits of any other construction, which is the presence of God in our hearts." Again, you see this same style of being positive, of pushing, encouraging, stimulating, motivating, even in the period of difficulties. And continuing, there was a third well-known communication of Léon Denis in the Spiritist movement, and this happened in 2004. 2004 was the 100 years of the birth of Allan Kardec, and there was a World Spiritist Congress in Paris in 2004. And there, in the middle of a main meeting, everybody could see, here you see on the small picture in the center, Divaldo Pereira Franco starting writing some things. And then when we look to what he was writing, you see here on the right side, it was written not from left to right, but from right to left. It was written in the wrong way. So we had to take the computer to scan it and flip the image or look it into a mirror to be able to read it. And the message was written in French, original in France, and also signed Léon Denis. And the medium was Divaldo Pereira Franco. So it's what we call this specular psychography. And here you see the transcription and translation of this message. So it was a recognition to Allan Kardec. The same year that Napoleon Bonaparte was crowned Emperor of the French, Hippolyte Léon Denis Rivail was born in Lyon, October 3rd, 1804. Transferred from the stake of Constance on July 6, 1415. For the glorious day of the intellectuality in Paris, Kardec devoted himself to the apostolate of the doctrine taught and preached by Jesus. His life and his work bear witness of his greatness, missionary of the truth. We, beneficiaries of your wisdom, thank you, moved and humbly ask you, pray for us, you who are already in the kingdom of heaven. And signature Léon Denis. So Divaldo got this, how to say, from right to left, and in originally in France. So that was also some, how to say, extraordinary phenomenon, showing also the presence and the support of Léon Denis in the Spiritist movement. There would be a lot more to show, but the time is limited, so I have to come slowly but surely to a conclusion. So to conclude, again, I'm taking a quote of Léon Denis because I have nothing better. I'm not capable to write better than what he wrote. And he is saying us in, again, the purpose of life. So lift up your gaze and embrace the vast perspectives of your future. Draw from this spectacle the energy necessary to face the winds and storms of the world. Walk, valiant wrestler, climb the slope which leads to those peaks which are called virtue, duty, sacrifice. Do not stop along the way to pick small flowers from the bush, to play with the golden pebbles. Forward, always forward. So that's again summarizing the style and the depth and the encouraging positive way of thinking of our dear Léon Denis. So I would like here to be grateful for the work that Léon Denis left us for posterity, and also thank you all for your participation, for your attention, your time, and I'm here available to answer any question if you have some question. Thanks a lot to all, and may the peace of Jesus remain in our hearts.
Thank you so much for that wonderful talk, Charles. It's wonderful to learn about Léon Denis. And as you said, no, there's a point in right now in France where people are starting to rediscover who he is, and I think now is a great opportunity for all of us to rediscover or to discover for the first time who he was, and all this wonderful things that he's brought, these books that he brought to us. So let's see if anyone's got any questions for Charles. Please put them in the comments or chat area. We do have a couple of items that have come through, but let's just give everyone a moment just to see if they have any other questions.
There are some interesting comments I see.
Yes, absolutely.
From Leonardo, for instance. One of the last ones.
Yep, it just came in now. So Léon Denis was a very humane being that saw the true power of the doctrine of the spirits on improving our vision of ourselves, our neighbours and the world. Respect was his motto.
Thank you, Leonardo.
I think respect needs to be the motto of everyone, really. Absolutely. No, thank you, Leonardo, for that great comment there. Let's see where else. Don Don Sambol has said, yes, archive.org has a great number of books that you can find, especially older books. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that, Don. It's always great to have these resources that we can try to find these older versions of anything.
Arthur Conan Doyle, by the way, is already free of rights, so his translation of Joan of Arc must also be available on the internet for sure.
Absolutely, yes. And oh, here's a message from Ronaldo in the USA about the translation of books. Many books which still haven't been translated from French to other languages. What do we know about the efforts of that?
Yes, so I know that in the US, United States Federation, it started also earlier with the work of Josara Korngold, and she started very early translating some of the Léon Denis books into English. So I found, as you can see, they are printed, they are available. Now, I did not read them myself to make sure the translation is 100%. The only thing what I can say is she was in contact with me. She asked me the originals in French. So I sent them these originals because, the books of Léon Denis had many revisions. I think only for After Death, it was something like 50 during his life. And he told before he died, I give my books free for everyone, but it must be the last edition. And then there is a list of what is the last edition of each of his book. And this is what in the French-speaking Spiritist movement we are developing. So anything on this, you can come to us. We can really help you to get the right original in the Word format and making everything the easiest possible for the translators.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful, and I think it's so important to make sure that all these kinds of books are translated well for as many languages as possible, because the only way for people to know about Léon Denis, to know about Kardec, is to get the books available. So I've got a few more questions here. I also was asking earlier about the relationship between Léon Denis and Arthur Conan Doyle, which obviously you showed some
Yes.
information before.
So it would be interesting to compile here again all the information about these meetings which happened with Conan Doyle. So it is somehow spreaded in the Spiritist magazine, Revue Spirit. It's spread in these summaries of the Congress. And all this information is, we scanned everything and put it for free download on internet on a website which is called Encyclopédie Spirit. I think you know it. And the web address is Spiritisme in French, with the E behind, .net, N-E-T. And on that one, you can find all the Spiritist magazine from all the Revue Spirit, Revue Le Spiritisme. Of course, there are not all the possible and all the existing magazine available there, but I think now we have really gathered a lot of them. And in particular, the summaries of the congresses, I talked about the 1889 one, we have it. There was one in 1900 also, it is available. And the last one in 1925, where Léon Denis was president, is also available. And there you can find all the details. And by searching into these books, all the talks and writings of Conan Doyle, we can gather all this information. But as I told recently to Elsa, it would be interesting to see if the archive of Conan Doyle himself are available somewhere. Where are they? Are they somewhere in a museum or a library and so on? Because for sure, therein you will find some original letters of Léon Denis that Léon Denis sent to Conan Doyle. And it would be a wonderful complementary information to bring to all these historical facts. And since Conan Doyle is very, very well known in the English-speaking countries, I think it will be a good promoting element for even for the Spiritist teachings.
No, absolutely, and who knows? Maybe a film producer may be interested in creating a movie about these kinds of
Why not?
relationships, because there's so many films about Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes specifically.
Exactly.
Let's see. So slightly off topic, but a nice question here from Fabrizio. Do you plan to do a historic tour in France that shows Spiritism throughout European history? Now, I would really be interested in a historical walk around France to see all the Spiritist places.
Yes. So, if I understand well the question, I think we got a huge help recently through some books written by Paulo Henrique de Figueiredo in Brazil. So it's in Portuguese right now. We are translating some parts of this book in French. Why? Because he made exactly this work starting from the French Revolution and showing how the philosophy evolved and the science evolved until the period of Allan Kardec, which means between 1857 and 1869. And it's extremely interesting to understand the context of that time, also the places, of course, where, who influenced and why Kardec was writing that the moment in 1857 was extremely favorable for the spreading of these teachings. I think I even have the book somewhere not far away here. Yes, here it is. Voilà. So I'm very thankful to the author of this book because he did it at least from French Revolution to mid of the 19th century. Of course, this is then stimulating us to write other books about this. Another book written in Portuguese was by Adriano Calzoni. He wrote Madame Kardec and In the Name of Kardec, Madame Kardec and Em Nome de Kardec, in Portuguese as well, which is also making some similar analysis after the death of Kardec in the first decade. Also very interesting. And what I wanted to inform here as well is maybe some of you know that thousands of original documents have been found recently about Allan Kardec. And all these documents are now being gathered onto a single internet portal, which is Projeto Allan Kardec from the University of Juiz de Fora in Brazil. So far, this website is in Portuguese. We translated it into French, and they will publish it into French very soon, beginning of this year. And progressively, all these thousands of documents will be inserted on this website and made available to everyone. And one of the projects we have is, of course, to continue this. Here we have documents about Kardec, but of course, we will also, as I told you, go and look to find more documents, more original documents about Léon Denis, letters, and so on, that for sure we will find in order to enrich a little bit this history. And since this year, 2021, is 175th anniversary of his birthday, it gives us a stronger motivation to go in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've looked at that site as well. The address is just below me here. It's a fantastic collection of things.
Yes.
It really is. And
you may have something like 100 documents already on it, but in a couple of months it will be thousands of documents.
Yeah.
And it's a huge work for transcription, translation. And so the website will be in French, but maybe one day it will be also in English. I think it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a little bit the work in front of us. So if there are people willing to collaborate, it's possible to register on the same website and informing them, sending them a message, I can help in this and that and so on. And this is, you see, impossible to do unless it's done collaboratively, in a collaborative way. by hundreds of people. Otherwise, you do not manage to have thousands of documents understood, analyzed, translated, and so on.
Exactly, yeah. Now we're going to go to just one last question here, because obviously we can't stay around all day. It'd be wonderful to, because there's so much still
I
to
have no
learn.
appointment later on, so I'm available.
Well, and we'll go to just this last question, which is one from our good friend Stefan in Ireland. Charles, in your opinion, what is
Hello,
the
Stefan.
greatest lesson Léon Denis got inspired by Allan Kardec?
That's a difficult one. For me, clearly, he followed his steps, both in the teachings and also in his personal behavior. Kardec was married, Léon Denis was not married. So this is one difference. But the fact that Léon Denis was not married gave him, I would say, even more availability to make this mission. He started younger, as you have seen. He learned about Spiritism when he was 20 years. Kardec started only with more than 50 years. But he really stayed very, how to say, in the big fidelity in the line of Kardec on several point of views. First, he remained open, very open. He was Spiritist, but he was, as you have seen, Freemason. He was also meeting with spiritualists, occultists, even Theosophy people. He made some lectures with the Theosophic in the Theosophic Society in France. So he was really very, very open to them, and he's told, "Look, you are already spiritualist, so we are much closer than what we think." And he was writing, of course, his book with a big fidelity of the basis of Kardec, but using, of course, today it's 100 years old, but the language was already 50 years more modern than the Kardec language, you see. So it's not so accurate as Kardec. Kardec is still the basis, but in the explanatory way, in the form and the style, it is much easier for the people today. And he really understood very quickly. I think he was personally touched to have met him personally when he was young. And as you can see, he dedicated also his life to spreading these teachings. So that's it. I mean, for me, when I look this, analyzing it from top, is Kardec came, and then there were a couple of strong, also elevated spirits, like Léon Denis, Gabriel Delanne, Flammarion, who came after Kardec in order to disseminate, to bring them to a bigger development, to integrate also all these scientific studies who have been made in between, including in William Crookes, in Frederick Myers and all these societies, also the metapsychic and so on. And they always brought, and so all analyzing all these new phenomena that happened, that this new analysis done, to bring and to show how all this is coming and confirming the basis that Kardec, that the spirits helped Kardec to put in the Spirit's book and so on. So that was really their strong work to consolidate all these teachings and also to give them a bigger extension in France. And that this is why I think today we have a lot to learn. Of course, science has evolved a lot, but we can also follow their steps in looking to the new discoveries of science now. You know that Einstein's theory of relativity got accepted only at the beginning of the 20s, 1920s. So there is some very little mention in Delanne and Denis about relativity. Quantum physics was also starting at that moment. So they could not go to the deep analysis of those. And that is the work we have to do today to show all the big consistencies of all this, what is it explaining, what is it not explaining, and follow their steps and continue the work.
Exactly, and we've got a couple of short comments here from two great people. So one from Umberto, who also works on the Kardec project. It says, I would say Denis's greatest contribution was to be very loyal to Kardec's thought and only adapt it to a slightly different historical reality.
Exact. And what I wanted also to stress here is Léon Denis had really a deep understanding of the Spiritist teachings, in particular of these debates which are today raising mostly in Brazil about autonomy, heteronomy. Clearly, Léon Denis was 100% purely autonomous. When he's talking about your will, know the power which is in you. You have to stand up, go. Don't wait that the people take you by the hand or tell you what to do or whatever. No, it's your own will. And this is, we can recognize the very strong understanding that Léon Denis had about this autonomy, and also this break compared to the heteronomy which came through the centuries in the traditional religions or even in the monarchic regimes where you had to be a good citizen, a good follower, and to do and believe what you are told and so on. So this time is still here today because a lot of people still need someone to guide them. But the future, definitively, with the growth of intelligence, of will, of liberty, is going strongly in this direction of autonomy. A child is not autonomous, but an adult,
Yep.
all the adults are not autonomous, but at least they should work to become by studying, by also knowing oneself better. And this was really the strong basis of Léon Denis' teachings.
Yeah. And just one other comment here to show from our dear Janet Duncan from the Allan Kardec study group, who already showed the photo earlier. And as she says,
Yes,
affirmation as to why people call Léon Denis the apostle of Spiritism.
yes, he's called apostle, disciple, as Janet is using. And for sure, it's they are part of the same spiritual team, and they came in a programmed way, one after the other, to do what they have done.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So thank you to everyone who's given comments and questions. Thank you, Charles, for giving those replies as well.
You're
I'd just like
welcome.
to ask everyone to hang on for a moment because we have a couple of notices that we'd like to give on behalf of the British Union of Spiritist Societies. Um, so it's just a couple of short things plus one fundraising announcement that we'd like to talk about. So I've been asked to mention that the third British Spiritist Congress, which was supposed to have taken place last year, but for obvious reasons didn't, has been postponed to 2022, so to next year. And also the British Spiritist Medical Association will be holding an online congress this year. And the details of all of these can be found on the BUS website, as well as in the BUS newsletter, which is also on the website. And as you can see, the address is just here, www.buss.org.uk. And the other announcement that we have, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask for your support. So this is a fundraising announcement. So here at Kardec Group, we have created a campaign called the High Five Campaign, which was set up so that people here in the UK and Europe can give support to our brothers and sisters in Brazil who need it. So at present, many people will probably know that there are thousands of people in Brazil living with only the bare necessities, sometimes with less, in very poor conditions, with very basic housing, facing so many difficulties which have been made worse by this current pandemic. And we think it's not fair and we feel that everyone should have some level of dignity to their lives, which is why I'm here now asking for your support. So for everyone watching, if you're in the UK or Europe, if you can spare just £5 per month, which is the same price as a coffee and a sandwich, if you can spare it, you can help someone who really needs. And there are two specific groups that we're asking for support. So the two groups are Grupo Espírita Sheila, Comunidade Maria de Nazaré, which is in Salvador, Bahia, founded by Florencio Anton, and Instituto Malturão, which was founded by Daniel Rossi in Curitiba, Paraná, both in Brazil. And both groups work to help people who are in need, who are reliant on donations and the support of others to have the minimum, like I said, minimum level of dignity. And the kind of work that they create, the kind of work that they're involved with, includes providing monthly food baskets, educational support, medical support, psychological support, help to make sure that people have respectable jobs, making sure that people have a firm roof over their heads, and that girls specifically have a safe and secure place to sleep without being abused. And the amount of work that these charity groups do is so great that, to be honest, I'd need a whole hour to talk just about what they do. And I'm sure everyone can agree that 2020 has given us plenty of opportunities to reflect, and we hope that you have the compassion and love within yourselves to help us so that we can help others. Donations to this are really easy. All you need to do is go to our website, kardec.org.uk/high5. You can see the address on the screen. And you can find our bank details at the bottom of the page, or you have a PayPal donation button, and you can donate as much as you can. So if you can donate £5, £10, £20, or as whatever you want, and if you can, make it a monthly payment. Why? Because we are sending these donations once a month to our friends over in Brazil. And like I said, all we're asking for is £5 per month. So if you're watching this and you're in the UK or Europe, and you can afford to spare £5 a month, the cost of a coffee and a sandwich, the cost of a takeaway meal. In fact, a takeaway pizza costs twice this much in most parts of the UK. So if you can help, that would be great, because like I said, 100% of this money goes to these groups. So please consider this as a way to help bring a smile to the face of someone who needs a little bit of support. So please, come and give us a high five. kardec.org.uk/high5. Okay, so again, just like to say thank you once again to everyone who's been joining us. Thank you again, Charles, for this great talk and for your reflections. And I think we've got quite a few things that we need to be thinking about, and quite a few books that we need to start reading as well. And thanks again to Bus for organising this event, for the Irish Spiritist Federation, for Kardec Radio, and Kardec Group for transmitting this event. And that just leaves me to wish everyone a very happy new year. Please stay safe, and we hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you all, and all the best for 2021.